So first of all, we'll go ahead and call the meeting into session. And the first item of business will be 2.1 to approve the agenda. And as customary, let me go through and read the agenda changes, and then colleagues, I'll be asking for a motion. First of all, consent agenda added item 8.33, agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office for the Choice Information Technology Institute CSI program at Crestview High School for the 2019-2020 school year. Superintendent's Human Resources recommendations added item 9.14, request approval of general and mutual release agreement regarding Henry Kelly. Adjusted numerical order of items 9.10 through 9.15 due to the addition of current item 9.14, request approval of the general and mutual release agreement regarding Henry Kelly. Discussion agenda deleted item 10.1, authorization to direct the school board attorney to draft a school board resolution to forward to the Okaloosa County Commissioners for a referendum to be added to the March 2020 presidential preference primary election ballot on changing the selection method of the Okaloosa County Superintendent of Schools at the request of Lamar White. Recognitions 3.1, recognition of Sharon Dooley, Northwest Florida Daily News education columnist, for her outstanding support of Okaloosa County schools through the Northwest Florida Daily News School Scoops column presented by Superintendent Marcus Chambers. So those are the changes and notifications. So I'm looking for an approval to the agenda. I need a motion.
Move we approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryan. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say that certainly Sharon Dooley has been an outstanding partner with us through all three of my schools and many district departments. She was there to support and to write up and to give recognition to our students in our schools, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kelly. So any other discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor of the agenda, let's raise their hands. Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right, so moving on now to section 3.1, recognitions. This will be the recognition of Sharon Dooley. And Superintendent, I know that you'll want to approach the podium. Northwest Florida Daily News education columnist for her outstanding support of Okaloosa County schools through the Northwest Florida Daily News. Superintendent Chambers.
Dr. White and the board. So it's a privilege to be up in front of you this evening. As you know, one of the pillars of our school district, it deals with the partners that we have, those community relationships. And the two recognitions that we have before us tonight, and I'm proud to come before you because we have two strong partners. The first one is Sharon Dooley, and as you know, she's been writing school scoops. And if you've ever had a child that's been in school scoops, as a parent, you've been extremely proud. And as a school, when you have Ms. Dooley writing about your students or programs that are going on at your school, you're extremely proud. And I just want to share just a little bit of information about Ms. Dooley. And then we'll have her come up, and then I'm going to have Mr. Horton come up with me. So first of all, Sharon Dooley and her husband, Paul, have been residents of Okaloosa County since 1987. In August of 1990, they sent their older son, Andrew, to Blue Water Elementary School. 2 years later, their younger son, Sean, entered kindergarten at Blue Water. That began several years of volunteering by both Sharon and Paul. In 1997, Ms. Dooley became an employee of the Okaloosa County School District, serving as a media center aide. A year later, she was asked to write the School Scoops column for Northwest Florida Daily News, a job she performed outside of her media assistant duties. Although Ms. Dooley left the school district, she continued writing school scoops, focusing on good news about our schools. A graduate of Texas Christian University's School of Journalism, Ms. Dooley applies old-fashioned journalism to modern-day media. Ms. Dooley believes that public school education is a four-way partnership amongst the students, the educators, the volunteers, and the community as a whole. All the partners must work together to ensure the success of the product, which is seeing that our students grow into healthy, productive, and successful adults. And this kind of epitomizes Ms. Dooley, and she's been a strong partner with this school district for so many years, and we want to bring her up and recognize her.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Horton, if you would join me.
Yeah, there she is.
Before we do this, I'm going to ask Mr. Horton may have a few words that he may want to say with his partnership.
Thank you. Very quickly, so just bragging on Sharon, we had a chance to sit down, meet with her
probably 6 or 7 months ago, and just to hear her passion about wanting to report about the students in our schools and the good things that were going on. And it's not always about the students who are at the top of the academic, in the top of the academic world. She wanted to focus on all students and find everything that was going on in the school district. So she sat down and took Mr. Chambers and I to task about 8 months ago to make sure that we reestablished and established a great working relationship with them. So we've got School Scoops contacts in every school, and the schools are doing a great job, I think, about getting information. And I think there was probably an article today on Back to School Scoops. Yes, ma'am. So we're very pleased to be able to work with her.
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
So Ms. Dooley, on behalf of the school board, and myself, and Mr. Horton and our team, we have a plaque for you, which is a certificate of recognition to you. And then we also, we heard that you may or may not like some chocolate goodies. So there's a little treat inside there for you.
Thank you.
But we just want to thank you for your partnership.
Oh, thank you,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
I think she'd rather put it in writing.
Oh, you want to bring your husband?
I don't think they care, I think.
Okay, all right.
Make sure my eyes are open. I'm gonna do one more, we'll do one more.
Thank you again so much. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations, Ms. Dean. All right, so the next item on the agenda is 3.2, recognition of Twin Cities Hospital and Fort Walton Beach Medical Center in support of student safety for their generous donations of Stop the Bleed kits to the Okaloosa County High Schools, presented by Superintendent Chambers. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to make a few remarks about this, and Mr. Horton, he'll also come up as we do this, and he may have a couple remarks as well. But I do want to say, just going back to having strong partnerships. So it is vital. This is a partnership that we hope that we never have to utilize, however. So the Stop the Bleed kits, they are a donation from the Fort Walton Beach Medical Center and the Twin Cities Hospital, and it provides us with materials that if ever there was a need, that our teachers, our administrators, our ed support would have the needs that they would have in terms of stopping something that would be catastrophic into something that could save lives. So once again, this is something that we hope that we would never have to utilize, but to have the partnership with these two hospitals, I think is a testament to how much that they care about our students and how much they care about Okaloosa County. These kits right here cost about $800 a piece, and they've donated not only one, but one to each of our high schools as well as Laurel Hill and Baker. And of course, they even said to me, we would love to do even more. I'm going to ask Mr. Horton to also come up and just kind of share with you just a little bit about where we are with Stop the Bleed kits after having our conversation with the two gentlemen that are here with us today and what we've been doing as well. So Mr. Horton, if you'd come up.
Very good. And welcome back, Mr. Horton.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the generous donations of Twin Cities Hospital and Fort Beach Medical Center and these gentlemen behind us have spurred us on as well. So as a district, we're always looking to make sure that we've got safety measures taken in every school. So not only the donations from these gentlemen, but we'll also make sure that there's one of these kits in every school beginning of school. They just came in, and so those will be in place and training will be provided. And again, as Mr. Chambers says, it's one of those things that we hope not to ever have to need, but we have to be prepared in the event that we do. And so that would allow for, in our larger high schools, there actually be 2 of these kits at each school, and each kit contains 8 units. So it's just the beginning and the importance that we're placing on not only student safety from the front end, but also on response in case of any events.
Yes, sir.
But every school will have one.
Very good. All right.
Mr. Whalen and Mr. Montreal will come on up. We'd like to thank you.
Well, now you know what hospital CEOs do. We're enablers. We just get the ball rolling and then other people take off with it. But this began for me about a year ago with one of your SROs. who was sharing, through a grandchild, who was sharing to me he was scrounging military surplus supplies in case any of this horrible stuff ever happened here. So it took us about a year. This is actually from the American College of Surgeons. It mounts on the wall in the front office near the AED, so everybody knows where it is. You don't hide it in the back closet. We want it up front and visible. If something unthinkable ever happens here, this pops open quickly. Very light bag, 8 individual kits, each with clot gauze and military tourniquet and gloves. Training brochures are in there that even I could follow, but we'll be happy to put together a training schedule for the schools with our emergency room personnel. So that's our spiel tonight. Hope and pray to God we never need it. But that's SRO really kind of touched my heart, and I said, we can't sit still on this, and Mitch and I partnered, and we bought the first 6. So there you go. Thank you for letting us cooperate
Very,
and do
very
this
grateful.
for you.
Thank you.
Once again, sir.
All right, sir.
Here you go.
Oh, wow.
All right, yes, sir. There you go. Thank you very much. I appreciate the partnership. Thank you all.
Now, we're going to take this one with us, I guess,
All right.
and then we'll deliver the rest of them however Marcus wants to in the next day or so.
So we'll begin with Mr. Horton. He'll be helping take care of that.
Okay. I've got a box back there. We'll have that.
Are we going to take a picture? Yeah, take a picture. We want to have them in the picture.
Come on in.
Oh, okay.
Tilt it forward a little bit.
It's going to tear a little bit.
A little lower. Mr. Whalen's head.
I'm old and fat, you can probably squish it. It doesn't stretch much more at this age.
Exactly.
Good deal. When Mr. Horton told us where we went. Very good. And we'll set up the training schedule.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, if you'll scroll down to the bottom of your agenda, you know that we're scheduled for some public hearings tonight. Just keep on scrolling until we get there. And here they are. There's section 17, actually there are 3 of them. 17.1, a public hearing for the adoption of a revised school board policy for purchasing. 17.2, a public hearing for adoption of a new school board policy for service animals. And then 17.3, public hearing for adoption of new job description for teacher on special assignment career recruiter. And looking out in the audience, I see lots of school people here that have had a big day today, the first day, and I know that they've got a big day tomorrow. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and convene the public hearings at this time, and now I will recess those public hearings and reconvene the regular school board meeting. So let's scroll back up. And let's go to section 4, visitors. 4.1, visitors. Now, what our policy allows for is that folks that request to be put on the agenda can do so, and in this case, these visitors have requested to be on the agenda. So 4.1, Patrick Ryan, Peggy Mitchell, and Samantha Lambert, on behalf of Yes for Okaloosa Schools, referendum on changing the selection method of the Okaloosa County Superintendent of Schools from elected to appointment. And so, Mr. Ryan, would you come forward? And Mr. Ryan, you've been a frequent flyer here, so you're well familiar with the rules. It's 4 minutes, and Mr. Bryan will be helping me with time. And so at this juncture, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, sir, thank you. It's not going to take that long. I believe that in light of some contentious issues that are going to come later on the agenda, changes to the agenda and everything, it's just going to be better if we ask to be rescheduled at either the next meeting or the subsequent meeting. So it probably will just make that we don't have to get the Stop the Bleeding kits out or anything like that tonight. So anyway, I'll just apologize, and we'll just
All right.
contact and get back on the agenda at a future date. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the brevity, Mr. Ryan, given the fact that we have 14 blue cards. So we'll see you at another meeting then.
All right, sir, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Superintendent, so that gets us to Section 5. on administrative personnel appointments. And so we'll start with 5.1, appointment of Program Director of Facilities and Plant Planning, recommended by Superintendent Chambers for approval.
And I might just add that I've filled out and submitted the appropriate form to be able to abstain.
That's right, very good. Secretary notified me that you had done that, so thank you, Dr. Kelly. All right, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, sir, Dr. White. And Board, I bring before you tonight Dr. Bill Smith. Dr. Smith holds a doctorate in educational leadership and facilities planning from the University of West Florida, an educational specialist degree in curriculum and supervision from UWF, and a Master's of Science in Health and Physical Education from the University of Southern Mississippi, and a Bachelor's of Science in Health and Physical Education from the University of Southern Mississippi. In addition to formal education, he has a broad-based educational background with experience in the classroom and as an administrative intern, as well as significant experience as a personal builder, developer, and manager. He has a strong record of cost-effective operations management, as well as a demonstrated ability in facility repair, renovation, construction, maintenance, and landscape services. He has a proven skill in budget preparation and large staff supervision and training, and an extensive knowledge of state and federal building, construction, health, and safety codes and regulations. Dr. Smith's knowledge of facilities planning and extensive educational administration experience in facilities and maintenance and new construction has earned him statewide recognition. He has held numerous offices in the Florida Education Facilities Planners Association, including 2 terms as president of that organization. Dr. Smith is part of an extended educator family. He is married to Dr. Diane Kelly, Okaloosa County retired school administrator and board member. His son is Dr. Ryan J. Smith, a principal solutions architect for Berkshire Gray in Boston, Massachusetts. Dr. Kristen Kelly Rizzo, his stepdaughter, is a surgeon at the Orlando, Virginia Medical Center in Orlando, Florida. His sister, Janine Williams, is a retired school principal from our county. And both parents, his mother, Cecile Smith, was a retired teacher and media specialist at Ruckle Middle School, and his dad, William J. Smith, was a retired driver's ed teacher at Niceville High School. I bring you Dr. Bill Smith.
Very good. Looking for a motion, board members.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant, need a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Evancheck. Any discussion? Hearing or seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Welcome, Dr. Smith.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the superintendent and the board for their vote of confidence, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Feels kind of nice up here not knowing that you're not going to get a question.
We're not done yet.
I'd also like to
Seriously.
thank all the district employees that have worked for the last 2 months getting ready for today, and thank them for the outstanding job in which they've done. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Smith. Congratulations.
I was going to give you a hug.
All right, and folks, what we'll do is we'll move through the appointments and then we'll provide a brief recess. So 5.2, appointment of Program Director, Exceptional Student Education, recommended by Superintendent Chambers for approval.
Dr. White, members of the board, I bring to you Amy Bowles. Ms. Bowles has been an educator in the Okaloosa County School District for the past 22 years and has spent the last 5 years working as the assistant principal at Northwood Elementary School in Crestview. Northwood is the home of 7 CBS classrooms that specialize in teaching students with autism and other spectrum-related disabilities and how to communicate, socialize, and control their behavior in different school situations. Ms. Bowles is certified by the state of Florida in varying exceptionalities K through 12, elementary education grades 1st through 6th, ELL grades K through 12, educational leadership, and school principals, all levels. She started her career in teaching at Valparaiso Elementary School in August of 1977, teaching students in kindergarten through grade 5 with varying exceptionalities for 2 years. followed by 7 years teaching students with autism and Asperger's syndrome in one of the first 5 CBS classrooms in the Okaloosa County School District. During her time as an ESE teacher, she was trained by Dr. Patrick McGreevy in applied behavior analysis techniques that would be used in the classroom setting with all of her students. These techniques created the much-needed voice for her students who were unable to communicate easily on their own in dealing with their wants on a day-to-day basis. Ms. Bowles also attended the School of Autism Institute in South Florida on how to use visual picture schedules, social stories, picture exchange communication systems, and appropriate classroom setups for different levels of exceptional student education classrooms. She has and continues to partner with CARD, which is the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, in order to implement support for parents in the home and in the classroom through CARD's continued partnership with Okaloosa County's ESE teachers. In 2005, Ms. Bowles and her husband found out she was pregnant with twins, which in turn led her to the decision to take her experience in ESE education into a general education 3rd grade classroom for the next 4 years at Southside Elementary, and then on to 5th grade for 4 years at Riverside Elementary before moving into assistant principal at Northwood, where she has continued to support all her students throughout the school. Amy Bowles.
Thank you, Superintendent. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
Second.
second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Superintendent?
Thank you. Okay. I'd just like to take this moment to thank all of you for your confidence in me. I'm going to do the best job I possibly can. I'm excited about this new adventure. I'm also excited about the positive changes in ESE and getting to lead the team in our ESE department towards those positive changes. I also need to thank Dr. Donna. She's here tonight. If it wasn't for her, she has been the best mentor, and the ESE teachers at Northwood have taught me a lot in the 5 years that I was there. So I'm excited to be working with the parents and the students and the teachers and the administrators in the ESE department. So thank you.
Very good. Well, congratulations
Thank
again.
you. Thank you. He's back there filming us right now, so.
Family want to come up, Dr. Donna?
Mama, Papa, Mama, Moms? No? Okay. See, nobody wants to.
How you doing? Thank you very much.
You want me in a different, you want, there you go. See, I'm used to them covering me up.
Actually, can you slide out this? There you go.
There it is.
All right, Superintendent, moving on to 5.3 will be the appointment of Assistant Principal 1 at Baker School, recommended by yourself. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you. Dr. White and the board, I bring before you Victoria Hurley. Victoria Hurley is a proud product of the Okaloosa County School District. She is a Baker School graduate who went on to earn her bachelor's degree in education and master's degree in educational leadership from Troy University. Ms. Hurley began her teaching career in Pasco County before returning home to give back to the community she grew up in. She has taught at Pine View Middle, Northwood Elementary, Walker Elementary, Baker School, and served our county as an instructional coach. For 16 years, Ms. Hurley taught a variety of classes with students ranging from 3rd to 10th grade, as well as participating in community and statewide projects. Since 2015, Ms. Hurley has worked tirelessly on Baker School's administrative team as an AP2. Among her accolades are the Governor's Shine Award, 2015 Okaloosa County Teacher of the Year, Walmart Teacher of the Year, and Disney Environmentality Regional Winner. Ms. Hurley is a lifelong learner, always seeking improvements she has earned as a K through 12 reading endorsement teacher, a CAR PD certification teacher, and she's also completed the Level 2 principal training. Ms. Hurley credits her success to the support she has received from her family, friends, former teachers, and colleagues. She has been married for 22 years to Drew Hurley, a Davidson Middle School science teacher. They have 2 children, Olivia Hurley, who will be leaving for college in a few days, and Stella Hurley, who keeps them on the go as a 3-sport athlete. Ms. Hurley has deep roots in the Baker community. Her grandfather, parents, sister, and children all graduated or are currently attending Baker School. While continuing at Baker, she hopes to carry on the tradition of excellence by leading through sacrificial service to students, teachers, families, and the community that she calls home.
All right, need a motion, board members.
I'll move.
Motion by Dr. Kelly,
I'll second it.
second by Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Superintendent?
Thank you. Ms. Vancheck, if you would join me.
To the board and Superintendent Chambers, I just am so grateful for this opportunity, and I consider it a privilege to serve my community. As you heard, I deeply rooted is probably an understatement, but it is home to me, and there's nothing that's more important than home being Baker, and then also my home. And so if I could address the audience, I have to say that we couldn't, as educators, do what we do without the support of our family, and my family's here, and I so appreciate them. I appreciate the support and the confidence of my principal, who's also a mentor, a listening ear, and a friend. And so we appreciate all the people who have taken time and invested into me so that I can further my growth and to give back to our school. So I intend to take this opportunity and use it to strive to make Baker School the best school that it could possibly be, which I think it already is, but we're always room for improvement. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Hurley. All right.
Look like triplets, don't they?
All right, Superintendent, this is the last one here, 5.4. Appointment of Assistant Principal 2 at Plough Elementary School, recommended by Superintendent Chambers. Superintendent.
Dr. White, members of the board, I bring before you Miss Laura King. Laura King is originally from Jacksonville, North Carolina. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte with a bachelor's in elementary education in 2001 and began her teaching career teaching 3rd and 2nd grade. Ms. King is married to her husband, Samuel King Jr., and they were married in 2004 and then moved to Eglin Air Force Base in 2005. She has been fortunate to teach 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades while working first at Oak Hill Elementary, then Valparaiso Elementary, and the last 9 years at Riverside. While still teaching at Riverside Elementary, she earned her master's in educational leadership from the University of West Florida in 2014. She has also earned her specialist degree in curriculum and instruction in 2016 and is currently pursuing her doctorate. Ms. King and her husband just celebrated their 15th anniversary and have recently rescued 2 kittens, Tabby and Torty. Ms. King is very excited about the opportunity to become a Plough Panther. She is honored and feels very fortunate to be able to continue to grow as an educational leader under the guidance of Ms. Matz. She is appreciative of the continued support from family, friends, and a Riverside family as she's pursued the goal of becoming an assistant principal. She feels honored to be recommended as the assistant principal of Plough Elementary School.
Very good. Looking for a motion, colleagues.
I'll move.
Motion by Dr. Kelly,
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Superintendent.
Dr. Kelly, if you join me.
I'd just like to begin by telling the board and Mr. Chambers, thank you for the recommendation. I'd also like to thank the guidance and support of Cindy Gates, Tammy Matz, Tracy Lamb, and Melissa Curley through this process. My husband, most of all, we've definitely we're learning our new normal the last couple of weeks as school begins, and we'll find that happy balance. I'd also like to thank modern technology because my parents are watching on YouTube right now from North Carolina, so that's wonderful, and my friends and family as well. I'd like to thank my Riverside and Plouffe family that are here tonight, and Oak Hill family is here as well on the most exciting and exhausting day of the school year. We got all the kids home today, so that's very exciting at Plouffe. And I'm looking forward to learning and collaborating with Plouffe teachers, students, and parents. So thank you for this.
Awesome. Well, very good. Congratulations.
Thank you. I know. She's trying to hide. She's got a hobble up here, so. No, but she's got a boot. She hurt a ligament. It's really not a. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we know and we've heard that it's been an exhausting day, so I will now recess for 3 minutes. School board meeting, and as you know, we recessed the public hearing, so let's go ahead, colleagues, and take those public hearings at this time in the event that someone is here for those. So we'll scroll on down to the agenda, and I will now call into session the public hearings. I'm still moving. All right, here we go. 17.1. A public hearing for the adoption of a revised School Board Policy 02-17 Purchasing Procedures presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director, Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here tonight to speak to this particular policy? Seeing none, asking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
I'll second.
second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion, colleagues? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to 17.2, public hearing for adoption of new School Board Policy 11-30, Use of Service Animals, presented by Mrs. Terry Schroeder, Program Director, Student Services, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here to speak to this item tonight? All right, again, seeing none, need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
Second.
second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. And now moving on to 17.3, public hearing for adoption of a new job description for Teacher on Special Assignment Career Recruiter, CTE, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anyone here to speak to this item tonight? Seeing none, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
I'll second.
second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so we will now exit the public hearings and we'll move back up and reconvene the school board meeting. And we're going to move back up to, I believe we're at public comment. Okay, thank you. All right, so we are at item 6.1. And as I said, I have 14 cards, and you can do the math, times 4. Unless, if you come forward and someone else perhaps maybe has already spoken to the points that you would like to make, you might wish to abbreviate your remarks, but we give 4 minutes. And so the first, we'll call the cards out in the order that I've received them. And so the first one is from Mrs. Kathy Foster, who lives in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Welcome, Ms. Foster.
Thank you. Thank you also for the opportunity to address you tonight. My address is 849 Tarpon Drive, Okaloosa Island, and I'm speaking in favor of electing future Okaloosa County School Superintendents. The decision to hire should be made by all Okaloosa voters rather than by appointment by 5 persons. I firmly believe this appointment proposal would not have been brought about if for not one bad experience. So I would encourage you to remember our past successful superintendents that we elected. Citizens had the benefit of knowing and interacting with effective past superintendents. We attended church with them, working side by side in service organizations, socializing in each other's homes. We watched as their children attended our schools, graduating, becoming businessmen and women, a doctor, even a congressman. Elected superintendents have shared the same concerns and values as us. They were invested in our community, and even after they were out of office, they remain engaged. Appointees come and go, possibly searching for a more lucrative position. But for the 2020 election, there are, at least at this point, 2 homegrown candidates who already have a connection to the community, with the experience and the heart to lead. So I suggest we keep things status quo. Thank you.
Stand by, Ms. Foster. Any questions or comments? Board
I
members?
did not sign up for that, Lamar.
But I've been chastised for not asking.
Oh,
So, anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster.
Thank you.
All right. And so then I have Ms. Candace Lovell, who also is from Fort Walton Beach, and she also wishes to speak to the method of selecting a superintendent. Welcome, Ms. Lovell.
It's an honor to be here tonight. I am active in the community. I've lived here since 1985, and since 2000 I've been in the Air Force Association at Eglin, and we give out $50,000 a year in scholarships to good kids to send them to college. We're interested in the community, and when I reflected on this issue, I thought of all the parents and the friends who have gone to the football games on Friday night, and people I worked with were going who didn't have any kids in school. In fact, they'd gone for 30 years and supported the Booster Club, supported the community. This community is active with the schools, with what's happening in the community to educate, and it's important that we continue to give that right to each of us to support and to lead and to guide so that we stay engaged for this community to be powerful. I'm a product of this kind of community. I was, and didn't know it, underprivileged. Yet my community helped me to go to college. They gave me scholarships. They fostered me going through and being part of things like National Honor Society, being involved and creating a good citizen, that for 40 years I could be a civil servant. This community does that here and fosters it. Doesn't matter where your economic class is, you're part of it, and the community cares. And so electing our officials is important because it's part of being engaged and selecting what happens. So I would like to keep it as an elected position because I care, and I believe the rest of the community here cares. Thank you for this opportunity.
Stand by, Ms. Lovell. Thank you.
Oh, any
comments or
questions?
questions, colleagues? Okay, very good. Thank you,
Thank you
Ms.
very much.
Okay, next I have Mr. Greg Jenkins, I believe. And Mr. Jenkins wishes also to speak on an elected or appointed superintendent. Welcome, Mr. Jenkins. You're way back there, so that's all right. That's all right. We won't take off your time.
I have to apologize, first of all, after 50 years of working for the Department of Defense, my hearing's not too good, and my battery has decided to die on me at this point. I rise up here because I wanted to talk about 4.1, the point of it. When I took civics a long time ago, we learned about the fact that God had created our constitutional republic in a manner in which the people, we the people, are responsible for the government. And he has made it in a manner in which we elect officials to serve on our behalf. And you all are very familiar with that process. And what I'm trying to rise to say is we need to retain that opportunity for the people to be responsible to the creator of the universe by being able to take appropriate actions with regard to the point of superintendent. And I think we should retain that, because if we don't retain it, then the people are no longer have a mechanism for accountability, let alone the school board, or however you achieve the appointment, and whatever mechanism that is involved with that, which leads to another whole scenario. But I'd like to say that, in the time I have left, that
You're still good.
that we would like to ensure that you understand that we the people, your supporters, because you all get our votes, right, would indeed continue to support the election of those officials that are elected, so that we have that opportunity to be forthright and responsible to the creator of the universe, as individuals and corporately as people and citizens of Okaloosa County. Thank you.
Very good. Stand by, Mr. Jenkins. Any comments or questions, colleagues? Don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have Mr. Bob Clark. Mr. Clark, are you? There you are. And Mr. Clark also wishes to speak about whether the superintendent is appointed or elected.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Bob Clark, and I'd like you to meet my wife, Karen. Karen, raise your hand. We've been residents, proud residents of Niceville since 1990. Both of our kids graduated as Golden Eagles from Niceville High School. And I guess I have a question and a comment about 4.1. My question is this, and maybe I'm not supposed to ask this, and if I do, please forgive me. Why are we considering making this change from elected to appointed? Anybody?
Any comments, questions, want to answer?
Nobody knows?
Yes,
I'll just
because
say-
we've had citizens come to us and ask to put a referendum on a ballot, and the only way that referendum on that can get on that ballot is through this board.
Okay.
That's the first step. So that's why we've been considering this topic.
So it came from a citizen?
It did.
Okay.
Well, actually, a group of citizens,
A
Mr.
group of
Clark,
citizens.
and I think it's important that we should say this. Their request, and they can speak for themselves much better than I can, is not for this school board to make a decision as to which way is better, or even to say that we want an appointed superintendent, or that we want an elected superintendent. All they're asking for is let the people have a say. And you may be opposed to that, I'm not sure, but we'll wait to hear from you.
Well, the elected process would seem to me to do just that. Very good. Well, I just want to add my support to the fact that, like many others have said already tonight, we would like the privilege of being able to vote for that position and not have it be appointed, which can lead to other can of worms type problems that you're all familiar with, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Ed Gilbert, who would also like to speak about whether or not there should be an appointed or elected superintendent. Mr. Gilbert, I know you're familiar with the rules. You've been here before, so I'll turn it over to you, sir.
All right, my name is Ed Gilbert. I live here in Niceville, Florida. I've been here about 25 years. And I too, as Dr. White said, I'd like to speak on the elected superintendent as opposed to appointed. I support the current system, and I hope that the people of this great area do likewise. According to Department of Education research on local government's role in schools, the local level of control is the heart of the U.S. education system at the primary and secondary levels. The Reverend Franklin Graham and former Congressman Allen West have both said that school board elections and local elections are the most critical elections in this country today. Because school boards and superintendents make education decisions on behalf of their communities, it is incredibly important for voters to research and question them, participate in elections, and remain engaged once members are elected. In turn, school boards and superintendents have a duty to engage with their constituents and represent them fairly. The traditional purpose of a school board is to act as the public connection to the school district. School board business includes, among others, developing revenue streams, addressing budget issues, setting standards, advocating for the needs of the public schools, and reflecting the community's expectations for the school district. As you could see, nowhere in that description did I mention the responsibility to even discuss how the superintendent should attain office. I would ask this school board and the community at large to take a hard look at why certain individuals and organizations want to change the current system. Is it because of the recent unfortunate circumstances involving areas of concern that have been addressed and corrected? Or is it something else designed to fundamentally change procedures, programs, and personnel that have been so instrumental in making our schools so outstanding for so long? Can anyone here assure the members of this community that you will never again deal with a situation involving poor decision-making by an individual, whether elected or appointed? The fact of life, whether we want to admit it or not, is that we all do make mistakes. It's how we deal with those mistakes and what we learn from them that counts. The right to vote is guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. It was intended to ensure that everyone would have the right to have a say in how he or she is governed. Once that right is given away in favor of appointment, it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to reinstitute. We believe the right to vote is a sacred responsibility and a sacred right, and that's particularly true when it comes to voting for local officials. Before anyone asks us to give up that right and that responsibility, there needs to be really compelling proof for making that sacrifice. That is, giving up the right to vote. We have to ensure that it has to be paid for with tangible results. I have not seen any evidence that indicates whether we elect or appoint a superintendent is predictive of student success. Opponents may argue that 14 out of the 15 lowest ranking school districts here in Florida have an elected superintendent. However, you won't hear them say that 10 of the top 15 school districts have an elected superintendent.
We've hit the 4-minute mark, but if you need to wrap up.
Give me 15 seconds.
You gotta hurry, because everybody else is gonna want it to.
All right. And 12 of Florida's top 20 school districts have elected superintendents, including Okaloosa County. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Chambers. We are very proud of you and all of you have accomplished. God bless.
Stand by, Mr. Gilbert. Any questions or comments, colleagues? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, so I have Mrs. Diana Gilbert, and she also lives in Niceville, and she would like to speak. You've written here support for an elected superintendent, Ms. Gilbert.
Yes, good evening. I am here to support the continued election of our school superintendent. I believe that the right to vote is a special responsibility, and I do not want to lose my voice in such an important decision. I have appreciated the opportunity to meet the candidates personally and to ask them questions and to hear them in a forum with the opponent. I like the fact that they are from our county and have a record of already being involved in our school system. They know the culture of this area, which I think is very important. I also like the fact that there are many people in the county that know them personally, as opposed to a total stranger from another area that we know absolutely nothing about. The Okaloosa County School District has an A grade, and it is number 3 in the state. And this was accomplished with an elected superintendent and an elected school board. Why would we want to make a change? What makes anyone think that an appointed superintendent could do better? The costs are also of concern. Electing a superintendent does not create new cost in the election. However, the process of appointing a superintendent is expensive. Some of the many costs involve putting the referendum on the ballot, hiring consultants, advertising, moving expenses, a greater salary package, which includes separation and severance package, and a buyout clause. I also have extreme concern of the ideology that an outside person might bring to this area. I have read of schools who have stopped saying our Pledge of Allegiance because of the words "under God," or because someone decided our flag was offensive. Explicit sex education has been presented in some schools to kindergarten and elementary schools. Teachers are being fired and students are being punished for using the wrong politically correct gender or pronoun. Students are upset and in emotional stress in schools where they lost the privacy and safety of their school restrooms, locker rooms, and showers as school officials allow boys who identify as girls into the girls' private areas and vice versa. A male PE teacher in South Florida got disciplined because he did not want to be in the locker room with a transgender, it's a boy identifying as a girl, with her undressed in the shower, and he got disciplined for that. And a teacher, an elementary teacher in Wisconsin, made a video that was his coming out video for transgender non-binary. And non-binary means that sometimes he feels like he's a female, sometimes he's a male, sometimes he's both, and sometimes he's none of the above. He has told the students in this video to call him Mix, M-I-X, still, and he told them the pronouns to use for him would be them, they, or their. He did this as he's dressed as a woman. The video went to every kindergarten student in the school in every age up through 5th grade. And he also made a comment that anybody disagreed with him were hate-filled people. This video was inappropriate and should never have been shown through a school district. I have compassion for those who are gender confused, but the teacher needs the help, and the school should not be promoting this indoctrination. The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Vladimir Lenin said something similar, but with a different motivation. He said, give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. The indoctrination of children is alarming and something we should be concerned with, and I hope everyone will keep this in mind, as well as the privilege to vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Any questions or comments, board members? Thank you. Well, I have one. Those examples that you gave, I think those were from other areas. Is that correct?
One's from South Florida, Port Richey.
Right.
And the others were from,
But I wanted to clarify.
different areas.
for the-
But our superintendent that's appointed
Yeah.
could come from different areas.
Yes, ma'am, I get that.
Yeah.
But none of those examples pertain to the Okaloosa School District.
I certainly hope not.
Okay. And what I would say is,
Yeah.
and I would encourage you that if you ever felt like that any of those were occurring, that you schedule an immediate appointment with the superintendent. Okay, so we can get.
You
a hold
can
of that.
count on that.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you. All right, so I now have Mr. Doug Davis, who also lives in Niceville, and he's here to express his support for electing the superintendent. Welcome, Mr. Davis.
Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I've lived in Niceville for 22 years, and I love it here. I just really enjoy being part of electing people and researching all the candidates for all different levels. And I'm a member of organizations where I can do that, and you know very well that I've done that. So I support electing our school board superintendent. I'd like to think that I have a say in how our children are taught and who influences them, and I want to continue to do that. And I'll stop right there because I know this is long, so.
All right, Mr. Davis.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Stand by a moment. Any questions or comments, colleagues? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, so the next 5 cards were all completed by one individual. That's Mr. Gene Early. So, Mr. Attorney, do we give Mr. Early, how many minutes did you ask for, Mr. Early?
Well, to be honest with you, you can take the bottom 4 and put them to the side for right now.
4 minutes.
And if you want to come back to it, you can come back to it later.
Okay.
But I had a bunch of.
Well, let me give the front end part first. I have Mr. Gene Early from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and this one says superintendent. Is that the one?
That's the one I'm talking
okay.
to.
All right.
Let me set this down. I don't need it.
Got it.
I came prepared to talk to y'all tonight. I've got some popcorn in my bag. I've got a bottle of water. I've got a little blue bottle for snake oil, okay? But I'm not going there, all right? I'm not going there because of what you said, Dr. White. Plain and simple. You're the school board, all right? You decide what goes on referendum and what does not go on referendum, all right? Y'all know how I feel about this subject, and y'all know exactly how I feel because our statutes do not change whether or not it's elected, whether it's appointed, or whether, okay, it is hired. Superintendent Chambers, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate what you do. I want to call your attention to Superintendent Chambers for a second. He walked into this job cold, just as cold as could be, and he's doing a heck of a job. I am not joking, he's doing a heck of a job. I'll call your attention to the staff that's here today. Could anybody who is in the staff just stand up for a minute? Staff or teacher here tonight. These are what you should be hiring. These are the people you put your money behind. These are the people that take care of our kids in our community, and you. They do. This is where we should put our money, okay? Plain and simple. The 5 of you are elected, all right? Here, this next election, you're going to be elected, or either you're going to run for election, or somebody will run for your position. But the truth of the matter is, what you're here for tonight is something that you just brought out. A group, a political group, brought this to you, and you're considering the action. Okay? I'm not going to go either way with that because, plain and simple, I've got to vote if you make that. But I want to ask you a question. I want each one of you to think about everybody who's been in front of you in the 2 years that I have been coming in front of y'all. I've never seen y'all just take an action because a political group brought it to you. I've never seen you put on anything on a referendum just because a political group brought it to you. You have got you've got citizens here that have got just as much power as that citizens group does, the political group that came in front of you. So you have to decide what you want to do. But the truth of the matter here, and is what really matters is, okay, where do you lean with this type of stuff? Each one of you is elected. Each one of you has to depend on these people out here to do the job. Just like with Superintendent Chambers. He has to depend on those people to do the job. It's not the elected position that makes the difference, regardless of what you may think sitting behind that podium right or those computers right now. It's these people out here. Now, if you're going to swing and sway every time a political committee comes up and says something to you, and all of a sudden you're going to expend your political capital for the goodwill we need for a 1/2 cent tax coming up, be my guest, put it on the referendum and expend that. But I'll guarantee you, you will lose votes across the board from the citizenry in this county that needs that 1/2 cent just like y'all do. So board, make your vote, make your decision, or just take it under advisement and don't do anything. But the truth of the matter is, I sent y'all a note that said, are you as smart as a second grader? If you read those 3 questions, if you can answer that and then go for this referendum, be my guest. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your service. And thank you for the job you do for us and my children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Early. So, is there anyone that has a comment or a question for Mr. Early?
I
about
do.
this? Okay, Mr. Van
Okay,
Schaik.
so Mr. Early, you brought out the 1/2 cent sales tax?
Yes, ma'am.
So, did I understand you that if this board agrees to put on a ballot, a referendum about letting the citizens decide whether we keep the status quo of electing a superintendent or change that method to appointing one, that conflicts with the half-cent sales tax getting on a ballot in the future?
Ma'am, you have political capital, okay? Plain and simple.
Yes,
You have the citizens behind you. If y'all didn't pay attention to what went on with the constitutional amendments last year and all of the issues where people got tired of seeing all these things and things and things and things, okay? The Constitutional Committee had to make a decision on what's the most important to take to the citizenry, not to throw everything at them. You waste political capital and citizens' goodwill when you keep adding referendum and issue and issue and issue. Tell us what's important to you. I mean, seriously, tell us what's important to you. I know what's important to me. And I'll be honest with you right now, I don't care whether you're elected, I don't care where you're appointed, I don't care if you're hired, okay? The job doesn't change. What changes is the political capital y'all get to spend, not my superintendent. Because plain and simple, if you put this on the ballot, you're telling me that as an elected official, okay, you think you're smarter than I am of who to choose for that position. This is a constitutional county. This is not a thank you, appreciate it. It's not. I mean, that's who we are. But if the five of you think that you're smarter than a second grader, okay, and smarter than us, then be my guest. But those three questions apply.
All right.
Yes, ma'am, it is political capital, and you have to spend it wisely.
Thank you, Mr. Early. Anything else, colleagues, you have questions or comments about? All right, now, these other
You
cards.
can take those other 4 cards and hold them till everybody finishes with this, and then we can address the issue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Early.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
All right,
it.
looking for Mr. Francisco Radanio, is that correct? And also wishes to speak to item 4.1. And I think you live in Niceville, Florida, too.
I sure do.
Thank you.
Thank you, board, for seeing me. I've lived in Niceville for 30 years. I'm a product of Edge, of Ruckle, of Niceville. I also have my bachelor's at Northwest Florida State College. I've grown in this school system. To me, the right to vote is in conjunction with your voice, with the First Amendment. I support having an elected official because that is my voice. By having an appointed official, you're telling me that I have lived here for 30 years and my voice is now taken away. And I will keep it short at that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir. Stand by for a moment. Any comments or questions about this? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I believe I have another Avicendanto.
She wishes to.
All right, okay. All right, thank you. All right, so that finishes up the blue cards for this evening until we get to the end of the meeting where we'll go down to the 2-minute time. Okay? All right, so then let's go ahead and move forward now. Move into the business section, 7.1, committee and staff reports, in-county travel paid for the period of July 4th through the 24th, 2019, presented by Mrs. Scallon. And then 7.2, out-of-county travel paid for the period of July 4th through 24th, 2019, also presented by Mrs. Scallon. Okay? Those are reports, of course. All right, consent agenda. 8.1, approval of the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
Second.
second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? All right, then. Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so now we got to scroll way down to, some of you are faster than I am. All right, section 9, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 9.1, employee on administrative leave, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. That is 9.1, and that's an information item only. 9.2, Deferred Retirement Option Program, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and that also is an information item. All right, 9.3, This is an action item. Addendum to the master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Education Association, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.4, addendum to the master contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa Education Staff Professionals, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
I will move we approve that one.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.5, proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedules for administrative, managerial, professional, technical, and temporary personnel, presented by Mrs. Rita Scallon, Chief Financial Officer, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.6, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2019-2020 school year, presented by Ms. Karen Peak, Program Director of Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
I'll move.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
I'll second.
Second, Ms. Vancheck. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.7, out-of-field report for the 2018-2019 school year, presented by Ms. Karen Peak, Program Director of Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
I'll move.
Motion, Ms. Vancheck.
I'll second.
That's close. All right, he defers. Second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Carries 5-0. 9.8, authorization of payment for back pay and accrued benefits, including reimbursement of health insurance premiums, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by Superintendent Chambers for approval pursuant to Section 11.05 Florida statutes. Need a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bryant. Got to have a second for discussion.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Now we can discuss. So, anyone?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
While it doesn't say it, in the content it does say this is in reference to Ms. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
While this is very unpopular, it appears, judging by the mails and calls, we all put our hand on a Bible when we took this office and swore to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Florida. It appears that the laws of the state of Florida tell us we shall do this.
Pretty explicit.
And contrary to anyone being able to explain to me how the law says I don't have to do this, my oath at the beginning of this fine job compels me to vote for this, although, as I say, it's very unpopular.
I understand. And I appreciate those remarks, Mr. Destin.
And I would
Dr.
concur, and I would just say that it seems reasonable to me that ending our relationship in this way perhaps is the easiest and best way to do this and prevent future litigation costs for the district.
Anything else, colleagues? Ms. Vancheck?
Yes. So what we have on here is back pay and health insurance reimbursement, I see. However, what about any legal charges?
It's not included.
This item does not include any recommendation regarding any payment of legal fees. This is strictly dealing with the back pay and accrued benefits matters.
Okay, so that's a separate item.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And my question, Mr. McGinnis, would be for you. You've had a chance to look at this Florida statute, and you serve as our school board attorney. Your recommendation on this item, I believe, would be that we vote for this.
I would recommend that you follow the law.
That's a good one.
In anticipation that if we don't, what would happen?
I don't have any doubt that there would be litigation brought forward to collect these benefits.
All right. So that point of clarification is, I think, what I was looking for and the public needed to hear. So unless there's any further discussion, I'm prepared to vote. Any further discussion? All right, let's call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving down. 9.9. Personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
I'll move.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
I'll second.
Again, it's a tie. Close.
I'll give it to Ms. Vancheck.
All right. Ms. Vancheck has the second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.10, employee transfers presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion by Ms. Vancheck,
Second.
second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.11, employee suspension presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bryant.
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.12, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.13, leave without pay presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, and recommended by Superintendent Chambers. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bryant.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so 9.14, request approval of general and mutual release agreement regarding Mr. Henry Kelly, recommended by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
And Dr. White, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a few comments.
All right, well,
I would too.
first of all, let's do this.
I'll move on that
I need a
motion.
motion, got to get it on the
I'll move.
table.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Bryant, need a second for discussion.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you, ma'am. So now we can discuss this matter as Dr. Kelly has offered the second. So at this juncture, Superintendent, if you wish, I'll turn it over to the board members and then come to you, sir, unless you would prefer to go first, as my understanding is that you have the duty to bring this forward. So go ahead.
I appreciate it. So first of all, I do want to thank the board. As you know, on Thursday, as it pertains to the separations section, I think we addressed the way maybe past practice has happened as we go back in history. So, and I do appreciate that. So as it pertains to the separations document, and when items like settlements are on there, going forward into the future, where we're going to remove those from the separations document, and it'll be its own standing agenda item. And now you have that before you also on 9.14, so I do appreciate that, but I want to go ahead and make that change as we go forward into the future.
Very good.
Also, I'd like to say that 9.14 is reflective of the past, but once again, making a change as we do go into the future. In this particular item, a lot of time and energy has gone into it, and even here as of late. And I do want to be clear about this item because I know a few concerns have been raised, and I appreciate the fact that concerns have been raised, and I think it's good when citizens are able to bring things to us and voice those concerns. But I do want to address a few things. So, one, there's been concerns as to whether or not this has been done procedurally correct. 2, who the employer is. 3, the superintendent's authority. 4, my letter rescinding the termination. So like I said, a lot of time, a lot of energy has gone into this particular item. A lot of discussions have gone into this particular item. I have been assured by my lawyer, Mr. Larkin, and I've been assured by our school board attorney, Mr. McGinnis, that all actions in this matter have been handled according to procedures and that they are being done correctly and legally. And I've taken the advice of our counsel. I've also asked Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Larkin to be prepared to make a few statements as it pertains to this item, so we can all be exactly on the same page. So I'd like for Mr. Larkin to come forward and Mr. McGinnis, if you don't mind, starting.
Sure. Let me first address the issue of process and procedure. This matter was started by a recommendation from the superintendent to the school board for the termination of this employee. That's the standard way. Matter of fact, that's the only statutory way that those recommendations can come forward to the school board. The school board took up that recommendation at a board meeting, voted to accept the recommendation. That triggers due process rights in the employee under Florida law. Based upon those due process rights, a notice was sent to the employee the day following the board meeting, advising the employee of the actions the board had taken, informing the employee of rights to an appeal of those proposed actions, and further informing the employee that if the employee failed to timely file a request for an appeal hearing, that the termination would become final and there was an effective date provided when that would occur. The employee did timely file a petition for an appeals hearing, which kept this matter open, kept it within the jurisdiction of the school board, and that matter has moved forward. The parties, and this is important to understand, once that appeal hearing was requested, the parties to that case are the district through the superintendent and the employee. They are scheduled then through orders of the school board to move forward with the process and procedure of preparing for that hearing proceeding and ultimately, if necessary, appearing before the board for that hearing. There is nothing in the process, however, that prevents the superintendent through his attorney from communicating with the attorney, with the employee, and continuing to try to find ways to resolve the conflict, to resolve the matter. And that's what happened here. It's important to understand that the reason that that recommendation for a resolution has come back to the school board is because once you voted on the proposed action, which was appealed, then the superintendent on his own could not unilaterally take back that recommendation. He would have to come here to the board and seek permission for that to occur. And that's exactly what is before you tonight, is a recommendation from the superintendent for a resolution of this matter. It is laid out clearly in a proposed settlement and mutual release agreement. That agreement contains language that lets you see exactly what process is proposed in order to get the matter resolved. And in this case, that involves a proposal that the superintendent would take back the recommendation for termination, that the employee would withdraw the appeal hearing request, and that certain financial consideration would be paid to the employee, not only as a resolution of the actual employment matter, but also contained within that agreement are all of the other types of causes of legal action that will be waived based upon the consideration paid under that agreement. And so, Mr. Chairman, that is an outline of how this has come about. Now, let me say this in regard to the letter that is attached to the settlement agreement. It's referenced in that agreement from the superintendent.
That's correct.
That is an attachment to that agreement in a form so that the board can see what letter will go out if this is approved. It is my understanding, and Mr. Larkin can confirm this, that letter has not been sent out officially. It has been prepared and attached to the settlement agreement for you to see exactly what would happen if you approve that settlement agreement. And so I want to clarify that for anyone that's thinking Mr. Chambers had already mailed the letter or issued the letter. My understanding is that has not happened. That letter needed to be there because it's part of the proposed resolution and settlement, and you would be authorizing that. So if there's any questions about the process, I would like Mr. Larkin to speak.
Well, just a question about,
Sure.
about that part. And this is, the question pertains to public information. So, Mr. McInnes, you're serving as the school board's attorney at our employ.
Yes, sir.
But because this particular situation became adversarial, we now have another attorney, Mr. Larkin. And so how is it that Mr. Larkin arrived here?
Mr. Larkin was authorized by this board to provide representation for the superintendent when there's any potential conflict matter. These employment cases are the most common situation where we must retain separate counsel to represent the superintendent as this matter is brought before the board in an appeals hearing. I cannot sit both as the attorney for the board, who is the judge and jury, if you will, and also be presenting the case against the employee.
Exactly.
So that's how come the other attorney is brought in, and he provides advice and counsel to the superintendent on behalf of the district in these matters. And that's what he's done in this case.
And I'd like to point out that this is not unique. Whenever these kinds of situations have occurred, we have employed separate counsel for the superintendent.
Yes, sir. That's what happens in each one of these situations.
Right. Not new.
No, sir.
Done it many times.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for Mr. McInnes. How about any others, colleagues?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. In trying to do my own thorough homework on this agenda item, I've talked to Mr. McGinnis numerous times, but I also took it upon myself to call an outside attorney who gives counsel to agencies like our own, but in other entities. And I ran this by him, and I said, does this sound like procedurally appropriate and the thing that we should do? And he said absolutely that we were on par with anything that he might advise in said or similar situations. So just to know that I got confirming authority outside the school district because this was such a touchy situation.
Very good. Anything else, colleagues? Before Mr. Destin?
And I've also talked to our attorney and various other attorneys, and I think procedurally, they have convinced me that they're well within the law. The part that concerns me is, in this process, the school board has a clear role. We are what I might call the watchdog. We sit in judgment about whether the actions of the superintendent, when he terminates employees, are correct and lawful. When we go through this negotiation before it ever comes to us, then I don't know what the facts were. I don't know if it's appropriate because I've not heard the evidence from both sides. I'm trying to remember when we had an agreement like this that was worked out before it ever came to us. I don't recall many, maybe there were in the last 6 or 7 years. So that aspect of that gives me concern. And, I would caution our employees on both sides of the issue, don't circumvent the role that the school board is supposed to play in this proceeding. But I can't find anything procedurally wrong, and looking at the issue, I'm not sure there's any way for us to come out any better. But it gives me concern that we don't know what the basis is for no longer thinking the employee should be terminated and going in this route.
Other than the recommendation
Other
of
than
the
the recommendation
superintendent?
of the superintendent, and I'm gonna, I see no choice but to go with that this time.
Okay. Point well taken, Mr. Destin. Well taken. All right, any other comments?
Yes, I
All
want
right.
to talk about the general and mutual release agreement, and maybe Mr. Larkin can speak to that. And I see there's a long list of things that are covered so that this former employee cannot come back and hold us accountable for several things. Again, though, I don't see, or unless I missed it, and you can help me with that, but I want to make sure that the public understands that we would not later have to pay for any legal fees, correct? Everything that's already stated in number 2, that's it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just want to make that, that clear. And also, I'm kind of backing up with Mr. Destin said. I am newer on the board as far as procedure, but I would have liked maybe, and I'm not sure if this would have been appropriate, but maybe some kind of executive meeting on this information before it came to us at a workshop, you know, on the agenda as a workshop, and maybe looked at it that way and then brought it out. But that's just as a suggestion in the future of maybe getting some information a little bit sooner before having to make such a big decision. I certainly understand it now, but it's taken a lot of legwork, so to speak, and a lot of talk to kind of get it understood, to make sure that we are following correct procedure and making the right decision here.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, executive sessions are allowed in lawsuits.
Right.
What, you all have
And
an
that-
opinion that that's allowed in this
That's
situation?
the issue. This is more in the nature of an administrative
Right.
proceeding, and those executive sessions are authorized in pending litigation matters, and we do not don't conduct those in this type of an employee situation.
Yeah,
And-
I
and the
understand. So is there a,
provides the statute provides the parameters of when you can and can't have those executive sessions.
so is there another type meeting or something? Like I said, I'm learning that we could do to discuss some of this prior to a
Not
workshop?
in any type of a closed session, no ma'am.
Okay.
And I think the point needs to be made that this was heading right down an adversarial path.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's litigation prepared, and it was pretty clear that that's the path we were heading into. And whenever that occurs, sometimes 2 lawyers is enough. Sometimes you have to have more, and those costs add up pretty quickly.
Well, and I'll just tag on to that to say that sometimes working things out in this manner not only saves us the nuisance lawsuits, but years of haggling and litigation and extending the time that we would be caught up in this one issue. So I think that's
And I
it's
was
a
in-
prudent way for us to go forward.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I
That's
didn't mean
okay.
to step in there. I'm pretty convinced in the legal counsel that I got that it might well have been in multiple venues.
There's no doubt it may have been, but I think we've expressed pretty clearly our displeasure with being put in this situation
Right.
in the future.
Okay. Very good, Mr. Destin. Superintendent?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I originally came prepared only to agree with Mr. McGinnis as to the process, but I find myself agreeing with all of your outside counsel. This was the proper process. We could have potentially brought this at a different stage, but we brought it publicly. At every stage, this matter has been brought to a public meeting. We did not try to get this into an executive shade session that is outside the public. So to that end, we have been transparent at every aspect of this. And all we brought to you now is this tentative agreement that's subject to your approval. I believe this is a great outcome for the district. This ends the loss or the administrative procedure of case number 19-02, and it also ends any future potential litigation. And I think it's in the best interest of this district, the board, superintendent, the employees, the students in this community to have this matter put behind them in an outcome that is certain that we can calculate and know and move forward. In terms of the letter was drafted on August 1st, but it is not effective until the board approves it. It has not been issued. It is not out in the public domain. It is merely a draft, or what would be a draft of what would be issued if the board approves this settlement agreement. And it's actually referenced up in the beginning. Attached is a copy of the employer's letter. So this was at all times a matter of public concern in terms of we placed it in public purview immediately. So from my perspective, we were able to resolve this matter, and any and all current and future litigation that either grows out of this matter or could have grown out of employment matters or other matters non-employment related. And I think it's in the best interest of the school board. I think it's financially prudent, and I think the board should adopt it and approve of it so that we can resolve the matter.
And Mr. Chairman, I do want to be sure, Mr. Larkin, there was some revision made to one section of that agreement?
There was a
today.
revision, yeah, there was a
Provided that.
revision made to the COBRA, just so everybody is clear. And this is another aspect of the transparency of I think, our process, is that we put into this article, into this agreement, in particular paragraph 2, exactly how we were coming up with the figures to pay as severance pay. We did not sit down and just come up with, out of the blue, figures that had no rational relevance. So you'll see that there's a accrued sick leave figure of $11,000. Now, we're not paying him a sick leave, but we're paying a value of that as a severance payment. And also, we have modified the COBRA payments. The COBRA payments were actually less when we factored out the different aspects of the COBRA today. We actually, the agreement that we came up with originally and the one that has been set forth today that was signed is actually less than what it was. Those two payments are made as severance payments. They're not made as sick leave and they're not made as COBRA. That is what they are identified. Maybe Mr. Kelly uses them for that, maybe he doesn't. But that's where the rationale came up for those figures, so that everything is transparent, so that the public can see exactly how we got to where we are. Okay? So that is the only revision. I think what is in front of you is has already been approved by Mr. Kelly and his counsel. I've approved the settlement agreement as to form, and so the final approval is by the board to make it official and to make the letter attached to it official.
All right, Mr. Larkin, stand by. Mr. Bryant?
Excuse me. Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you for pointing out something I was going to say here in just a few minutes, and that's we're to a point to where the school district is moving on now. Through everything that's happened over the last couple of years, this is just another part of that where we can finally put it to rest and move on. And I know Mr. Chambers also said that in the paper the other day, and I just personally feel like that as a school board member, I'm trying to look out for the best interest of the entire school district, and I would support this just because, like you said, this is a fair deal. It also moves us forward, and now we can put this behind us. But I also would like you to point out that there's some other parts of this agreement where Mr. Kelly cannot publicly say things anymore about this. Am I correct?
Well, there's no, that's not entirely correct. He and we are permitted to comment on the settlement in terms of what it is, the facts and figures and so forth. We have both agreed, though, in light of how contentious I think our positions became, that it would be best that we avoid disparaging either one of us. We will agree, and we have agreed, that we will not make any disparaging comments either directly or through a third party about Mr. Kelly, hence the letter that's attached, and the agreement that can be referenced for the terms of it. Likewise, Mr. Kelly has agreed to do the same. I think he wants to move on with his life and pursue his careers and goals, and we would like to do the same. And so that's one of the aspects of this, is to try to draw a conclusion to all of this, so that there's no more negative banter. We acknowledge everything that has happened when we're moving forward in a positive way.
Thank you. And that's, when this does come up for a vote, that's why I'm going to vote for it, because it does draw a conclusion and we can move on, and Mr. Chambers can do what he's been appointed to do, and that's help continue to grow our school district to be the best that it can be. So.
Agree.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Any other questions for Mr. Larkin or discussion, colleagues?
Just happy to close this chapter.
Well, we got to vote on it
Close the chapter,
first.
move on.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. So, thank you, Mr. Larkin. So, in this case, I need a motion.
I think we got all that.
We got all
just
that?
need to vote on it.
How could I forget? Of course. That's why we're discussing. All right. So, any more discussion? All right. Then let's vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. All right, so let's go on now to 9.15, employment separations, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. All right, need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant. Need a second?
Second.
I think you're deferring, all right.
Yeah.
Then Mr. Destin has a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. All right, item 10.1 was deleted. I've already read that one. 10.2, we had no items moved to consent. All right, so now we head into section 11, construction program owners representatives business. 11.1, Mr. Destin, you serve for us in that capacity, sir, so if you have anything.
I will try to address the topic of the day.
Okay.
We have tentatively set up a meeting on the Etheridge Stadium tomorrow. We've got the engineering reports from 2 different groups. We have a inspection report, and we have a Lord and Sons who will be there to discuss how they will go about preparing the stadium and what the time schedule will be. So hopefully, after tomorrow afternoon, we'll have some more answers on the schedule of those repairs.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Destin, for all that work. And there are a lot of folks that are interested in that.
Yes, there are, and I want to say that I believe, at least from the preliminary look at it, that it's within our financial ability to fix unless something is wrong that we do not foresee.
Okay, excellent. Very good, very good. Any questions or comments about that, colleagues? Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Destin. All right, so 11.2 is the program number 6, task order number 5, time and materials task order, emergency remedial efforts, both design and construction for repairs in Joe Etheridge Stadium at Choctawhatchee High School, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, Specialist, Facilities Planning and Maintenance, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, no business on Section 12, information. Section 13, Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
Yes, sir. 2 items tonight, Mr. Chairman. I need to request an attorney-client meeting to discuss a matter of pending litigation. The case is pending in Okaloosa Circuit Court, case number 2019 CA 001613, and we would request that this be scheduled prior to the next school board workshop at 8:15 that morning, and we will follow all the legal procedures under the statutes to conduct that attorney-client meeting.
All right, you require a motion?
Yes, sir.
All right, need a motion, colleagues?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
The second item, Mr. Chairman, is a follow-up to an earlier item on the agenda. I have concluded research and review of the request that came in for attorneys for former Superintendent Jackson regarding a reimbursement of attorney's fees. While there are certainly cases out there that go both ways in regard to a local agency or any governmental agency in Florida's obligation to reimburse those fees, they're each fact-specific, and the court's rulings in those matters relate to those facts and those situations. There is not a Florida statute that requires or provides for the specific reimbursement of the attorney's fees in this particular kind of situation. There is a statute that would have addressed that issue had the Senate proceeding been completed based upon the outcomes of that proceeding. There may have been statutory guidance there, but that didn't happen. So I'm satisfied that statute does not apply in this situation. It is my recommendation to you that we not pay the reimbursement of those attorney's fees. I say that with a caveat that I would anticipate that there will be efforts made to recover those fees. I would anticipate there may very well be litigation to recover those fees. But I cannot, based upon the research that we've done, recommend to you at this time that those fees be paid by the school district.
All right, so does that require an action on our part?
The recommendation is that they not be paid, and so unless there would be a motion to pay them, I would believe that that'd be the consensus that you're not doing that.
All right. Thoughts? Well, motions?
I don't have a motion other than to
Yeah.
listen to our legal counsel.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna beg. I'm just giving you plenty of time.
And like I said, I want to make it clear that the claim for these fees they're making is under common law case law that we have reviewed and evaluated, and obviously there can be arguments made on both sides of that matter, but it's not strong enough to make me recommend to you that those fees be paid.
Sounds like we might be making them somewhere else, those arguments.
I have no doubt we will be.
So you've responded to that request?
I have
No,
not responded
no
because I
responded.
felt like I needed to report to the school board. I don't
Okay.
have that ability on my own, so if there is no motion directing the payment of those tonight, then with your permission, I will respond that request is denied.
So we need to make a motion that you respond, or,
That'd be fine if you want to do that.
all right, I'm on it.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Evancheck, and that motion is, what is that?
Yes, I'm making a motion that we allow our school board attorney to respond negatively that we will not be paying those fees to the request for Mrs. Jackson.
And I will second that.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any further discussion? Well, just for the record, how much was the request for?
The request was for $282,000 roughly in fees and cost.
Now, I do have a question to that.
Yes, sir.
Now, did we actually receive the bills from the attorneys to come up with that figure?
Yes,
or is
sir.
that?
And just for information purposes, should litigation be filed, I mean, I guess those fees would continue to accrue.
There's some of the case law we've looked at that would indicate that in some of those cases, fees were not allowed in the effort to
Right.
pursue fees.
Okay.
But I can't tell you under what theory
Interesting.
the suit could be filed to recover these fees, and so I really
Okay.
can't comment at this point
I understand.
whether fees would or would not be recovered.
Okay, just trying to get some idea of what we're talking about.
I would say that you should anticipate that's a possibility that there would be a claim made for attorney's
Additional.
fees to pursue the attorney's fees.
So we got a motion, second. So any further questions or discussion? You guys ready? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, Superintendent, I almost said some more of your business. All right, so 14.1 would be some out-of-state field trips, but then 14.2, any correspondence or requests or other information that you'd like to share with the board or public?
So today, as you know, is a very special day, the first day of school for our students. And as we all know, there's a group where today is their very first day. And of course, there's a group that today is their last first day. And I will say, and I don't want to get emotional, but you know, today's my daughter's last first day of school. And so I, just like many parents, as you watch kids go through the school system and be blessed by the many teachers and staff, you're truly grateful. So I did want to take this opportunity just to once again just say how amazing this school district is, and as a parent of two, you know, what it's done for my kids, and just from the emails and comments that I receive from parents in terms of the blessings that have been placed on their children. I think that's something that cannot be overstated. This year, one of our themes is everyone is important or no one is important. And you may have seen, you know, some of that on social media. You may have seen some schools with T-shirts and a number of things. And we say that because this May, we will have a group of seniors that will walk across the stage. And the senior teachers will have made a difference in their lives. But so will have that kindergarten teacher, that bus driver, that food service worker, that bookkeeper, the PTO. It is everyone is important and no one's important, and all these different entities have a role in our children moving through school and then eventually graduating. So we do have, and this is through donated funds, not taxpayer funds. Just want to make that very clear. So Miss Ard and a group of principals at the South End, they created this shirt. They actually blessed me with one of them as well. And Dr. Kelly, this one is yours, so if the sticker falls off. But it is a very cute shirt that says everyone is important. So each of you, you have one of those. And through donated funds, not taxpayer dollars, we have a cup for each of you. It has our Okaloosa County seal, and on the back, everyone is important and no one is important. So just wanted to have that for each of you as well. And thank you all for the work that you do, for being in the schools, for supporting our teachers and staff and principals. It takes a true team to be able to do this, and I couldn't be prouder. So I just wanted to say that, especially on this day.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much. That's
you.
great.
Those are both
Yeah.
very nice. Thank you, and very
I'll
thoughtful.
give this to you at the end.
All right. Anything else? Good?
That's it.
Okay, very good. All right, so now we're moving on to section 15, board members' announcements. And so, Mr. Destin, sir, if you have something, I'll start with you tonight.
I don't have an announcement, Chairman, but I do have a request for information.
Okay.
In the spirit of trying to put some of the litigation we've been blessed with the last few years behind us, I will ask the board attorney to give us a report on litigation we're involved in with ex-principal Marlene Van Dyke. That one is still bubbling along as best I can tell. I'd be interested to see where we are in that and what our thoughts are on our proceeding.
Okay, very good. Mr. McInnes, you have that, of course. I see you making notes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Destin. Mr.
That's it.
Bryant?
That's it for me. Go ahead.
Mr. Bryant?
Just like Mr. Chambers said, it's an exciting time this morning. I happened to be at Antioch Elementary when the parents and students first came in, and I will say that Mr. Chambers is right. We have just such a great school district, and just to see the faces on those children and the parents, I don't know who was more excited, the kids or the parents, taking them to school. But, it's, and I've said this many, many times, and, it's just great to, that we have so many great employees out there, teachers, custodial staff, everybody that just comes together on this first day to make it happen. I told many principals, it doesn't matter what happened, as it comes to August 12th, it's going to happen. So we can't stop it. We just have to be prepared, and all of our teams have been prepared. I also want to say a shout out to one of my school's principals, Lorna Carnley. As y'all know, we've been making a lot of changes to some of the traffic patterns in the school district. Two of them happen to be in District 4, and me and Ms. Carnley and her staff were out there today at Walker Elementary. And I would just ask that the parents, the neighbors, everybody that's involved in the process, please be patient. It's been a work in progress for many years. For those of you that don't know, Stillwell becomes a parking lot about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And with the help of the city and the county and the school district, we're trying our hardest to do it. And I will tell you today, bless them. It was definitely a lot going on. It took about 45 minutes to get all the car pickup students done today. So please be patient, whether it's at Walker, Crestview High School, Bob Sykes, Florosa, a lot of traffic patterns. Let's be patient and give it a chance to work, and hopefully within a couple of weeks we'll have it all down and everything will be moving smoothly.
Yeah, I didn't bring up that I made 2 trips by Florosa today. I slowed down enough to see what was going on, but not slow enough for the parents or the principal to grab me. So they're working through theirs too.
Yeah.
And thank you for working on that, too.
That's been, and they did a good job, and they've gotten it done through the summer, which I was quite pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
But it's something different.
Wow, okay, very good, very good. All right, Dr. Kelly.
Oh, well, I just have a couple of announcements. One is to remember Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Niceville High School's auditorium, the Niceville Strong, which is a community rally to bring awareness to and prayerful support around those addictions, alcohol and drug addictions, and other issues that impact our youth today, suicide and other trauma awareness that impacts our youth. So if you can come out and be a part of that, that would be tremendous. And I just wanted to have a note to our parents. We sing praises all the time to our teachers, and they deserve every bit of praise we can give them. But for our parents, you really are the strongest voice for your students. So if you're listening, please take just a second and go over the student code of conduct with your student. And if you dropped your student off this morning to school, please, if they don't know where their bus stop is or where they need to go line up to meet the bus, take a second to go over that with them, because I know sometimes we drop them off and we forget, there's a pickup at the end of the day too. But for our parents, I just want you to know how proud we are that you support us, and if there's a situation, please bring it to someone's attention without letting it fester. Your principals, your teachers, and your district staff, and we want to know about them so we can help be part of the resolution. And thank you to those parents who support us. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Vanchek.
Well, I wanted to do a little something different on the first day today, and I've been in schools a lot, so I rode the bus today. I asked if I could ride on one of our buses, so I asked to ride on Miss Liz Waskowski's bus today, and Mr. Jay McGinnis said that would be great. And when I asked Liz, she said, "Sure can, meet me at the bus barn at 6 a.m. And I did not want to be late, not on the first day, so I got there, and a little bit dark still, but we did it. But today, riding on that bus started the 40th year that Liz Waskowski has driven a bus for Okaloosa County Schools. So it was she should have had a sign up today.
A crown on.
Yeah, a crown or something. But
Tiara.
it was great. It was a great experience. Talk about relationships. When kids would get on, she goes, yeah. And his mother, she used to ride the bus. People were waving to her as she, we'd go through her route because she's been doing it a long time. They would wave, they would talk to her. So, those bus drivers, for many of our students, that's their first contact every day with coming into school, and particularly today. And they were showing her their new lunch boxes, whatever it was. I got to say, we started off with the high school kids, and it was a pretty quiet ride on that one. Didn't pick up till we got the elementary. But I want to say to Miss Liz, I told her today how much I admire her and all our bus drivers for what they do. Again, they're that first contact every morning, and of course, I felt really safe. If you can drive a bus for 39 years, you got it going. So that was my great day. It was a great first day for me.
Thank you, Mrs. Vanchek. And the reports I got was that we had school and it went well. But I would say some of that patience is probably needed in the case of some of the lunch lines. And that'll start to move faster too, just like the traffic as we get a little further along. Colleagues, I do want to point out 15.1, we need to conclude with our appointments to the Okaloosa County Value Adjustment Board. And so if you'll look at that item, you'll see a memo there, an explanation of appointed members. And so currently, our current representatives are Tim Bryant and Dewey Destin as the alternate, and Anna Crespo. And I spoke to Ms. Crespo, and she's willing to continue to serve. So we've got our citizen. So I need to know if Mr. Bryant and Mr. Destin, if you two are willing to continue, or
Well, I would think that our two newest school board members might find this interesting. It's only a couple, well, honestly.
That's how it works in politics.
Honestly, it's they only meet a couple of times, and it's it's mostly procedural, but I think that would be good.
Okay, so.
Very good education.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hearing.
And they asked that
I'm
question
hearing
on
at least
real
a
estate
3-0
license,
vote.
so you'll be on a real estate
So I'll
license.
be your alternate then.
I see how you went there, Miss Dr.
So-
Kelly. There you go.
So we'll need a primary and then a secondary. Okay, so would one of you be willing to volunteer?
Ms. Vanchek, would you be willing to?
I'm honored to
I'll
take that.
I'll make a motion that Ms.
All right, so-
Vanchek will be the representative, and Dr. Kelly would be the alternate.
And I will second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. It's going to be at least 3-2.
These gentlemen are so
So I
kind.
guess we have to
They're so
exclude our
kind to
vote,
us.
Hey,
right?
and just so y'all know, when I was sitting over there, I got voluntold
You-
quite a bit, so.
I got you.
New kids
Yes,
on the
okay,
Yes,
and
and
he would
the
add to
citizen
that.
member.
Oh, yes, and the
So
citizen
we'll
member.
add Ms. Crespo to the
Yes,
motion as well.
absolutely.
And so, but I know the vote will probably be 5-0. But in any case, any more discussion about that? All right, so let's call the question. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand.
Do we get to vote for ourselves?
Any opposed?
I'm voting for you, you vote for me.
We'll do it.
All right, so the motion carries 5-0 then. All right, so then that finishes up our last little item of business and takes us to public comment. This will be members of the public desiring to address the school board. Is there anyone here? Okay, I see Ms. Mitchell's raised her hand. Ms. Mitchell, I know who you are, but I'll ask you to fill out a card for the record when you finish.
Okay, thank you. I'm Peggy Mitchell. I've been a resident of Okaloosa County since 1984 and taught in Okaloosa schools for 31 years. I just want to make one comment about the referendum effort that we're promoting. I wasn't able to vote until I was 21 years old, and one of the legacies my father left me was to be a good citizen. And I have treasured that vote. I have voted since I was 21 in every single national and municipal election, and it is not my intent or our group's intent to rob anyone of their constitutional right to vote. The reason I'm promoting this referendum is to allow the population, the citizens, to vote and select the method, either to keep it the same or to change it. And the only reason we're asking to change it is so that the superintendent's position can be held accountable to the school board. Every single job in Okaloosa County, they're accountable, and they can be fired, and they can be reprimanded. The only position in our school system that is not held traditionally accountable is the superintendent's position. And that's the only reason we're asking for the referendum, to allow the public to voice their opinion. Not just come every school board meeting, but to put it out there for the public, and the more the better, obviously. The more people who can vote for it, the better. And we appreciate your allowing us to come and speak to you. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Mitchell, let's see if
Any
anyone has
questions?
questions or comments. We
Probably
did
not.
everybody. I don't see any, so thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Early, see you raising your hand, sir.
Well, I still got 4 cards up there.
I know.
The truth of the matter is, hold the 4 cards. I'll pick them up at the next one.
Okay.
Can I speak to what was just said?
Sure.
Okay, your constitutional officers. Every constitutional officer is accountable, bottom line. Superintendent is a constitutional officer just like you are. The accountability is there. The failures weren't at the school board, plain and simple. Y'all were not responsible for what happened to this school district. Plain and simple. Changing it will not stop public corruption any way you look at it. If somebody wants to be corrupt, they're going to be corrupt. That's the bottom line. If somebody wants to take an illegal action, they're going to take an illegal action either way. Whether that position stays a constitutional officer or an employed position doesn't change that whatsoever. Okay? Accountability is there. The problem was accountability above your level was not enforced on the actions that happened. Thank you very much. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And it has been a wonderful first day for me, for my daughter, and for my grandchildren as well. Thank you very much.
Stand by. Any questions or comments, colleagues? All right, thank you, Mr. Early.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. McInnes, as far as I know, we're finished up with business tonight. Superintendent, you're good. Staff, anything? All right. Colleagues, any last chance?
Okay.
We're adjourned.